Hi, I'm Nico and I'm developing a 3D platformer where you play as a fish trying to escape from a sushi restaurant. In this devlog we will see a bunch of things: score, health system, and something essential for all living beings, especially fish.
Water.
Yep, again, water. I told you it was important. And for explaining why, I'm getting help from a very special guest. Those who watched the last devlog, we already know them. Our frenemy, the squid.
Water, composed of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, is the most important chemical compound for life on Earth. It is present in every cell, every organism, every corner of our planet. In many ecosystems,
Wait. That has nothing to do with the game. Let's see. The water, in our game, serves 3 purposes. First, they provide sun where we can breathe. When we leave the classes, we will have a limit of time to return to another one, or we will start suffocating, losing health points. Second, they give us a checkpoint, a place to respawn after losing a life. And third, they give us access to shooting a water stream to fight against enemies. With that clarified, let's start programming the ability to take damage. I start by creating the variables lives equals 3, max health equals 5, and health equals max health. One variable for knowing if the fish is dead, and I put the respawn point in the initial player position. I also create a game over signal, which at the moment has no uses, but I imagine it will be useful in the future. In the receive damage function, I add the condition that the player is not dead. I subtract 1 health point and print the health in the console. Then I proceed with the next block of code, which I will change later to make it more efficient by reducing some conditions, but for now, this is how it works. If health reaches 0, it subtracts a life. If lives are still greater than 1, it regenerates all their health. If not, it emits the game over signal, stops the stun timer and stuns the player. Then changes the variable to indicate they died. But if they're not dead, this stops the velocity and places the player at the respawn point. Moving up to the function that applies the water effects, I ask it to change the respawn position to the player's position when they come in contact with the water. With that done, we now have the basic mechanics for taking damage and respawning at the last visited class when a life is lost. Respawn? Check. Now I add a timer to the player. I couldn't think of a better name than water timer, but it will control how much time the fish can be out of the water. I connect its signal to the script, and if time runs out and the player is still out of water, it receives damage. Then, if the player is not in the water and is still alive, I restart the timer, but this time with a choke rate, which I will define above as a variable, setting it to 5 seconds. I will also define the amount of time the player can hold their breath of the water as 1 minute. Inside the signal that detects when the player area exits the water, I start the timer with its last value. Inside the signal that detects when they enter the water, I stop it. This way, when the player exits the water, they will have 1 minute to return to it. If they don't, they will take damage every 5 seconds. I wanted to recall how to make the UI, thinking it will be simple, but I found myself going back and forth redoing things. For example, for the breathing barcode, I initially wrote a percentage, with the idea of scaling the size of a line, based on a division. But of course, I soon realized that Godot has a specific node for progress bars, and all I had to do was setting the bar's value to match the remaining time on the timer. So, the bar's max value is the time the player can hold their breath. The bar's value is equal to the timer's time left, except when the player is in water, then its value is equal to the max value. Every time the value changes, it sends a signal that matches the progress bar color to green, yellow, orange or red, depending on the current percentage. Suffocation? Check. For a better revisualization of our lives and not depend on reading the console, I should add at least a basic UI. For that reason, I went to Illustrator and traced a heart shape, guiding myself with the heart rendered I showed you the last devlog. I create a new scene corresponding to the heart, that is an area 3D. When it detects a collision with the player, it adds a life, emits a signal that it changes and self-destructs. The interface consists of an horizontal container that arranges each child's node. The first node is an animated sprite, where each frame of the animation represents a heart that is more or less full. When the signal that looks for health changes is activated, the frame switches from the heart corresponding to the current health point. The following nodes are a texture of a full heart. When life changes, if it decreases but is still above 1, the last node in the container is deleted. If it's the last one, instead of deleting it, it becomes invisible. If instead a life is gained, a node is added as a child of the container, using the same full heart image. This way, we can visualize how many lives are left, as well as how many health points remain in the current life. It was challenging to make the UI adapt to the window size as needed. In the end, it turned out decent, but I'm not sure how it will look in larger screens. I'm considering this a temporary solution until it's time to create the final UI. Now I'm testing if the hearts react to the damage as expected. Health system, check. Shooting. Wasn't this done back in Devlog 2? Yes, but I decided to change it. Instead of getting a shot every time we enter the water area, now shooting will use a third of the water we have. That means we can shoot twice, but it reduces the time we can stay out of water, making every shot a calculated risk. So we changed the condition that allows us to shoot, checking if we have more than the required percentage. And when we shoot, I reset the timer, this time subtracting the percentage of water use from the remaining time. Now you can see how the breathing bar is lowered when I shoot. Shooting, double check. In every 3D platformer, there are points to collect. Is that the reason some people call them collectathon? Collectathon, marathon, collection, collectathon, whatever. In this game, our little protagonist is gonna get points by collecting fish eggs. So let's add a counter for collected points to the UI. The UI code will handle keeping track of the points. So I add a points variable equal to 0 and a signal to detect when the points change, which will be the responsible for updating the label's text. Just like we did with the heart, we create a scene for the eggs, with the difference being that this one adds a point, emits the signal, and self-destructs. To calculate the maximum points, I will reference the level scene and check the size of the array of child nodes that are of the egg class. This way, every time I add or remove eggs from the scene, the maximum obtainable points will update automatically. Later on, I plan to make enemies drop an egg when defeated for the first time, along with other objects that will give more points. When I do that, I need to remember to update this code. Score, check. With this implemented, this is how the game looks. Coming soon. For the next week, to be honest, I feel a bit intimidated. Although several people have told me it's not that terrible and actually quite simple, my next goal is to create an state machine. And not just an state machine, but also to make animations in Blender and import them. Because I think it makes sense to combine both the animation and the state machine. So yeah, it's going to be my first time making one, but also my first time animating in 3D. So see you on the next week. And if I don't upload a video, it's because I had trouble with that, and I will upload it when I'm done. So I hope you enjoyed this Devlog, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.